Off the bench with Razzie Sport.
Hello and welcome to episode 14 of the Off the Bench podcast. My name is Ronald Brown. I'm also here with my co-host, Coach Ron Brown Jr. and also Coach T. How you guys doing today?
Good,
Doing
good. How
well,
you
sir.
doing?
How you doing?
Uh, all right, that's great. That's great. All right. So today we're here with one of our special guests, a Tulane legend, and also the current assistant coach for Florida Gators, Coach Carlin Hartman. How you doing today, Coach Hartman?
Doing great. Thanks for having me, guys. Really appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you for being on, Coach. Thank you for
Of
being
course,
on.
of course.
Okay. All right. So I'm just going to start off my first question here. Coach Hartman, for listeners who may not know your full story, how did basketball first become a part of your life?
Yeah, I think it's just one of those things where back when I was growing up in Buffalo, New York, back then you played the seasonal sport, if you will,
Okay.
and when you grow up in an area like that, that means you're going to have some harsh winters. So
Right.
we were indoors quite a bit. Ron understands a little bit of that, or a lot of it, I should say.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
so basketball was really at the forefront of what I did. Football, was a fall sport. Basketball was a winter sport. Baseball was a spring/summer sport. So basketball was just one of those things where I was able to do it with my uncles and play in the playgrounds with a lot of friends in my neighborhood, and it just was something that I took hold of, and fortunately, it's been able to be a big part of my life.
Mhm. Did you start out doing any like rec leagues or anything like that, or
I would just play a lot at the Boys and Girls Club, there in the Buffalo area, in the east side of Buffalo.
Mhm.
And then once I got to, and I didn't really play anything organized until I got to high school, quite
Okay.
frankly. Yeah, and when I got to high school, that's kind of when everything started to come, form into shape. I probably played a lot more, not probably, I did. I played a lot more baseball growing up in like Little League baseball and so forth. But then again, when I got to high school, that's when I started to go to basketball camps. I started to get pretty good, and
Mhm.
the next thing my high school coaches and AU coaches started to really formulate, not just relationships with me, but also, the tutelage that they were giving me, was second to none. So
Mhm.
it allowed me to get the exposure I needed to, start to gain Division One offers.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. So you were a former college player. How did your playing career shape the way you coach today?
That's a great question. I was a under recruited player when I got to Tulane. I had other Division One offers, the low, the mid major, a couple high, late, but for the most part, I was just one of those guys that was a very under recruited. So I had already formulated, a mindset and a particular work ethic of like an underdog mentality. And so when I, finished playing at Tulane, I played a little bit in the CBA for a few years. Then I got hurt, so fortunately I had my degree, and I was able to get right into coaching. But I had an idea, and I knew that I wanted to get into coaching when I was at Tulane. I looked at a lot of the coaches that were there with me. Perry Clark was our head coach. I watched him work in an era where there wasn't a lot of black head coaches, and he was one of the few that was having success. So I watched how he did, his daily grind and his daily work, and the other coaches on staff as well. And we had a really good core group of guys that I played for. Ron Everhart, who recruited me to Tulane, he ended up being head coach at McNeese State, Northeastern, Duquesne University. Dennis Felton was also one of our coaches. He ended up being head coach at Western Kentucky and then Georgia. Jimmy Tillett ended up being head coach at Sanford University. Billy Kennedy was on our staff. He ended up being at Texas A&M. The list goes on and
Wow.
on. Todd Bozeman was on our staff. He ended up going to Cal to be a head coach there. So we had a lot of people that I can look at and want to be like during that time. So it was very
Hmm.
fortunate.
Mhm. And
Okay.
so, and then the one that the style their style of coaching, was it the the tough, I'm gonna grab him by the ear and grab the collar, or was it more of a intellectual type of let me help you understand what we got going on here.
Yeah, to let you understand what we have going on here was grab you by the collar and pointing at you and letting you know like what it was, you know. And back then, like it wasn't any social media, it wasn't a whole lot of things, that prevented coaches from, giving you some harsh lessons. You
Right.
So you can't do a lot of that stuff today that what they did to us back then. But
Mm,
it's really all good. I learned a lot. I was very appreciative of the investment they poured into me and my teammates.
mm.
And again, just watching them, do what they did, and quite frankly, it's still the best era in Tulane history was the time in which we were there, and I was there as a student athlete from 1990 to 1994. Went to two NCAA tournaments, went to an NIT, won games in each of those events, and had a lot of success. So I'll never say anything bad about my coaches in my time there because it was outstanding in terms for me to move forward as a man and as a coach.
Oh,
Okay.
so,
So next we're gonna jump here to your journey to Florida and with Coach Tar Golden. How did the opportunity to join Florida Gators staff come together for you? You could
So that
give any
started probably,
insight on that.
yeah, that started back in 2012 when I was a associate coach at Columbia, and Todd comes on our staff, and he had played for
Mm,
Kyle Smith, who was a head coach at Columbia and a good friend of mine. And Todd played for Kyle at St. Mary's College, and so we were looking for a replacement to for Kobe Altman, who is now the president of basketball operations with the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Oh
And so
wow.
Todd had a relationship with,
okay.
um, I'm sorry, Kyle had a great relationship with Todd, who he played for, and Kyle recruited Todd to St. Mary's. Fast forward to 2012, Kobe leaves for the Cleveland Cavaliers as director of player personnel, and we have an opening. Todd comes in, and we struck up a great relationship from that point on. And then when he got elevated to San Francisco, I knew that he was going to be a rising star. He had a great run at San Francisco, gets the opportunity in Florida. He calls me, and I knew once I saw that his name was coming across the ticker, I felt like, I was probably going to get a call to come and join him. And sure
Mm,
enough, a few days after he was there at Florida, he called me, and I was at UNLV at the time after my 6 year stint at Oklahoma, and it was awesome experience being in Vegas and trying to get that program, back to relevance and elite status. And I thought we were building something pretty
mm,
special. When Todd called it what Florida was like a no-brainer, for me to jump at. It's one of the, in my opinion, blue bloods in the SEC. I had
Right.
already won two national
mm.
championships, and the resources were unmatched. So I just said to myself, yeah, I'm going to do that.
So as an associate head coach, how would you describe your role within this staff and how you support Coach Golden day by day in the
Yeah.
place?
Yeah, that role is obviously I understand what it is. Again, it is supporting the head coach and doing anything that he has asked of me, to help have another set of eyes on a daily basis from a recruiting standpoint to offensive,
Mm,
defensive schematics, special team stuff, in line out of bounds, all those things. But also the biggest thing for me is just the mentorship piece. I understand what that role is for me. I take a lot of pride in it. I take a lot of pride in just, being around the guys, mentoring them on and off the floor, and doing whatever it takes, to get the best out of them so that we can have the best product on the floor. And there's a lot of tough lessons that come along with that.
mm,
And I don't mind being that guy that, assist in that because, people poured into me when I was younger. And I want to be an
mm,
example for them as not only as a coach, but also as a husband, a father, for them to be able to see all the things in which I bring to the table, and I'm not trying to be a replacement to anyone,
mhm.
in my role.
mm.
I'm just trying to be an adjunct, and I'm just trying to be someone that, those kids can see on a daily basis as an example.
Okay.
Understand.
I have a question. Just listening to what you're saying, jumping over to your mentor piece.
Mm.
Um, uh, what I would like for you to describe to me is if I'm a kid, let's say I'm a 10th grader, ninth grader,
Mhm.
and I want to become a I want to have a mentor.
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
know, what attributes or what characteristics should I take into trying to meet said mentor?
That's a good question. I think, basically it's just about, kind of being yourself, first and foremost. And I also think like, kids that are yearning for that type of, leadership, mentorship, you know, they got to kind of open their mouths,
Mhm,
right now, we're kind of in a day and age, where, people kind of keep to themselves or utilize the social media, cell phones, to get all their information. But we as
mhm,
humans, we still need that. And we still yearn for, someone to, look up to or talk to or you know
mhm,
try to appreciate the things that that person brings on a daily basis, but you're not going to know unless the person that you're wanting to be mentored by understands what that is and what that role is.
mhm.
So I think a lot of times kids just have to like essentially put themselves out there, you know
Okay.
open your mouth, talk and have a conversation. And again, far too often, people like to get their information now for chat GPT instead of like going to the source.
Mhm,
Going to
Facts.
going
Facts.
to somebody like a Ron Brown, who's doing all these positive things in the community and all these things. So
Trying.
yeah,
Thank
like
you.
talk. We have to talk to one another as human beings still to
mhm.
this day.
Okay.
Facts.
Yeah, definitely answered that right there. You've coached at the highest level for a long time. What does competing in the SEC mean to you personally as a coach?
Yeah, personally, and when I first my first high major job was back in 2016 at Oklahoma. It was a year after they went to the Final Four with Buddy Hield and that crew. Um,
Right.
that was my first, opportunity to be at the, highest level. The Big 12 at the time was, tremendous. You get your Kansases, with Bill Self, Baylor was awesome, Iowa State. Everybody in the Big 12 was very good and very competitive. Being here at Florida. I mean, like that's just like there's levels to power power five, power four schools, if you will.
Right.
Florida's, in that top upper echelon of schools, and that's why I left UNLV, to go to Florida because Todd had other options. To be honest with you, like he had some other schools in our league, which I'm not going to mention, but in my opinion, they were not of the same ilk as what Florida is. So, um, being here is just incredible because not only do you have resources, but you have people in place, that can help, move, move things to where like you have the things in which you need in order to be able to compete and succeed at the highest of levels, to hey, what we did last year, win a national championship. Not everybody in our league is capable of being able to do that because they don't have the right resources or the right people in place. We have that here, and that's what's really exciting, about being at a place like this, winning one last year and now having an opportunity to compete, for what we will see, and possibly have another one, but there's a lot of steps that have to be made, but you don't get that at a lot of places. Being here at Florida, you get that and then some.
What are some of the biggest lessons you've learned from postseason basketball and high pressure moments?
That's a really good question. Okay, so for me, I would say like this is year 26 for me. So I would imagine if I could look back to myself, when I was in a fifth year or sixth, seventh, eighth, whatever years into coaching, I was probably I was definitely a lot different than I am right now. I would yearn on every single possession, emotionally high, emotionally low, miss layup, miss three, made dunk, whatever. And I'm just like emotionally just charged up for everything. Now,
Mm.
I don't let a 10-0 run bother me, as much. Because I understand like the totality of it, like in a 40-minute game, things are going to happen that are going to go against you, and then things are going to happen that go your way, and you just have to like understand like that's just the ebb and flows of the game. You want to have more runs and more stops and more great offensive possessions than the other team, but just like we played a game last night. against a team that we beat by 47 on their home court. Well, they have pride too. So we play them the second time, and last night, and then we end up only winning by 14 points on our home court. And it's like, you know
They
what?
come with that chip on their shoulder.
Yeah, I mean, like, they got pride.
Hmm.
Right. We got pride.
Yeah,
40 points was pretty embarrassing.
of course. Yeah, especially on your home court. And now you come back and,
Right.
they're going to make adjustments.
Hmm.
And again, they got pride. And so they played a much, better game. They weren't as surprised by some of the stuff but I guess I'm answering that, Ron Jr. by saying, like, you know, I, I knew what it was going to be last night. I didn't really anticipate us winning by 47 again. But
Understand.
you go through those games and you can, sit there and think like, well, why aren't we, winning by, this amount of, and it's like, no, we got to take it one possession at a time. Human nature is going to strike a little bit, with our guys and so forth. And so, we were just happy and pleased that, when we were up by 22 with about 4 minutes ago, we thought to ourselves, okay, we got this one in the bag. We're going to win this game. Um, and so lessons from last night is, you still can't take anybody, for granted, regardless of, what their jersey says. You got to go out and you got to perform. You got to do the things in which you need to do, in order to, win games the way that you're supposed to win them. And we weren't perfect last night, but you know what? We weren't bad either, to be quite frank. So I
Right.
think my experience allows me to just kind of stay even keeled, not get too high, not get too low.
So you're not only a coach, you're a husband and a father, and now you see your son headed to play college basketball.
Mm.
How special is it for you to watch him walk the path you lived?
Yeah, that's an outstanding question. I get asked this every so often, and like the first question is why is he coming to play for you? Well, the short answer is much rather be his dad than his coach. Being his coach, I don't want my relationship with my son to be muddied because of my anxiety for him being on the team and so forth. And you never know how, what's going to happen in the next 3, 4 years, 2, 3, whatever, with freedom of movement and all that stuff. But I anticipate him going up there, and having to really work for it. And it's going to be hard. And hard is good. My kid has lived a really good life and, that I provided for him. But now he's going to go take on a beast of a challenge in one of the best programs in the country. And I'm okay with that. He could have gone to some other places where, he probably would have gotten the rotation a lot quicker, a lot sooner. But what life lessons will you learn from that? Go somewhere where you're going to be challenged, where you're going to be mentored, where you're going to have to go through the process of, getting your tail kicked and getting used to the athleticism, getting used to, not being at home and not allowing having your mom wake you up, and all those things. So I'm extremely proud of him, Kim, just because at the end of the day, like I really feel like he's going to a place where I trust the coaches, I trust the people that are there in his place, and yeah, like I think anything else, and Ron, you can attest to this. You see your son, and Ron, in your case, your sons and daughter, of course,
Right.
living out their dream, and then when that dream becomes a reality, man, I just want to sit back and I want to see him go through that process and, just be his dad and, you know.
Right.
And make every
Well, my,
game,
my
huh?
thing, let me ask you this, coach. Because like you said, I've been coaching for about 15 plus years as well. And it's with all the knowledge that you have of the game and all the experiences,
Mm.
seeing him go through it,
Yeah.
now that he's gonna be going to college,
Mm.
right? Playing for a great school and great coach. Love
Mm.
Coach May,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, we took Isaiah from him.
right, right. Um, but when he faces the challenge, do you think you'll be able to guide him being a coach and with all the experience you have, or do you think that, because I know for me, with all the experience I had, it was a little tough
Sure.
because it's a little closer to the heart
Of
than
course. Yeah.
than being able to talk to someone else.
Yeah, I think I'll be able to guide him, but I'm not going to be there with him every single day. So a lot of my messages, I'm assuming, are probably going to be, You got to trust the process. You got to trust your coaches. You got to trust your training. He'll have some moments, I'm sure, throughout the course of his time there where, I'll be able to help him out. But really and truly, I have to trust in them. Well, first and foremost, I have to trust in God, and
Amen.
I have to trust in them, to be able to get him, to where he can be a winning type player for them, and I think I'm going to be very similar to Ron. Like I know that, we've obviously had, discussions and moments and talks, about your boys and everything, throughout their tenure here. And I'm going to probably do the same thing, but I'm not going to tell them what they have to do because I ain't there every single day.
Right.
That's not my job. My role is to support him,
Correct.
and that's what I'm going to do to the best of my ability and try to see him as much as possible, which would be very challenging, being here in Florida while he's up there, you know,
Mhm.
that's going to be the hardest part for me. It's just not going to be the ability to be around him on a daily basis, but we'll get through that.
Oh yeah, you will. You will. There's
We ain't
some
got
adjustments, but you get used to it after a while.
we ain't got no choice.
All right. So this question I got here. So has being a father changed the way you relate to players, or you just still relate to players the same?
Yeah, I think I relate to players, the same. But I do think like being a father, obviously you try to think about, okay, how will the parent feel, if, I'm going at their kid, hard. Um, but then the other part of it too is like I think I owe it to the parent and the player to, you know, if I needed, challenge their son, I would hope that they would want that just based on the fact that being here at Florida, this ain't for the faint of heart. This ain't easy, and it's my job, it's our job as a staff to get these guys ready for, the best athletes in the country that are be coming at you on a daily basis and some of the best coaches around in the country, because they're going to scheme, to stop us and we're going to scheme to try to, figure out how to, have successful possessions on both ends of the floor. So you got to bring it every day.
Mhm.
And that's just kind of what it is. And, this is not for everybody, quite frankly.
No,
This
that's
level is
true.
not for everybody. It's a grind. It's a dogfight. Some most parents that we've come across, in our time here and my time in coaching, have allowed us to do what we need to do. Look, at the end of the day, like me personally, I'm never gonna disrespect a kid. I'm gonna coach them. I'm gonna go hard. I'm gonna tell them what it is, but I'm never gonna like call them out their name and be disrespectful. But challenging, yeah, you got to challenge them. And you got to, do that because number one, that's what's required, to be able to win games here because they got to adhere to a scout. They got to, be in the right place in the right position to be able to, you know, again, win these possessions that we're talking about, but never will be disrespectful. And I do appreciate, parents that, obviously want the best for their kids. I just don't want parents to, tell us or tell me, how I need to do my job, even when it comes to their kid
Mhm.
just because I'm here on a daily basis. I'm the one that is, trying to help their son get to a certain point and get to a certain level. And after 26 years and, you know, not a two-bone horn, but hey, we did win a national championship last year. I gotta kind of think that
A
myself,
little something.
that yeah, we have an idea of what we need to do. You know, the process of it and everything when it comes to like these kids, especially if you have the right ones, it's a lot of fun, going to war with them. And the challenging piece, when I challenge them, I like to hope that, they would challenge me to, be, my best self as well.
So the NIL has completely changed college sports. How do you feel NIL is shaping today's college basketball player?
I'm happy that these young men are able to, capitalize on, um, their name, image, and likeness, and being able to, profit off of that. I think it's been long overdue. Um, I guess, and I don't have a problem with them, again, getting what they deserve. I guess the The only problem I have sometimes is like just it can be more transactional, during the process, during the recruiting process, during the retention process, where numbers can get involved and sometimes that skews, you know, what, what it really should be. From a educational standpoint, relationship standpoint, I think those things still matter. Uh,
Mhm.
and NIL can kind of muddy that. I mean, but life, that's just life. That's what happens with money. Money just, you know, it can be good, but there also can be issues that arise when, dollars and cents are involved. So the transactional part is something that I've had to kind of get used to over the last few years. And now that I am, I see value on both sides of it. We've been able to, take care of some people. Some other people we've, unfortunately not been able to take care of, and they've had to move on. But there's a lot of good that comes along with it. But there's things in which you just have to kind of like understand it just is what it is, when it comes to the recruiting piece of it because it's here to stay.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I'm gonna jump in on the question here, Coach. Like you stated recruiting.
Mm,
Do you see it hurting the high school kids? Like, I mean, you have your great high school kids coming out,
mhm.
that,
Yes.
5 stars, all elite players that
Yes.
can play on that level. But do you see it getting in the way to NIL, the likeness, kids thinking they worth more, not even playing one game of college ball,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and demanding
Mhm.
a high NIL?
Yeah, I think everyone's road is different. I think
Right,
you do have, certain high school guys that can make an impact and will make an impact at the Power Four, Power Five level right away. There's others that, just need a little bit more seasoning, need a little bit more time. But obviously, Ron, you understand this. It's getting older. Like the rosters in college basketball are getting older, whether we like it or not. So are American high school kids affected by that? Yeah, because you have Europeans that are coming over, and some of them are coming over at starting at age 20, 21, 22, as
right,
because their system over there isn't the same as the high school system because they got to go play quote unquote professionally on their club teams. And so they're naturally going to be just a little bit older. And now you got, like the G League aspect. And so all these other things that are occurring. But we obviously have jobs to do, at our level. And it's putting the best product on the floor, to win games, older tends to,
right,
tends to win. And if you just look at the top teams in the country right now, the gone are the days, of, Kentucky, 10, 15 years ago with Calipari, where he had all these freshmen and they were, outstanding and, getting the national championship games, or even a Fab Five back in the early 90s, when I was playing.
right, right.
Those are a little bit more far and few between. You are going to have, certain instances like, obviously Arizona's got Koa Pete and Braden Burries. Those are
Mhm.
two really good, highly touted freshmen. But they also got Jaden Bradley, who's a hell of a point guard, and he's 22 years old. You know,
Let me tell you, when we played them, this coach, I told people about Jalen because he came out in 2022. That
hmm
kid is a monster.
the monster. He's good.
Yeah, and he's not in the top 25 of guards. Well, he might be now,
Should
but
be.
when we played him, yeah, he wasn't.
Oh yeah, I mean, I hear you, and that's the thing, Ron. Like, um, they wouldn't be where they are without that kid.
Yeah.
Facts. Facts.
And as good as Cole Pete and Braden Burries are, Cole Pete obviously had a great start to the year, and he had a great game against us. But Braden Burries struggled early on.
That's true.
Yes.
But he had a security blanket in knowing that Jaden Bradley, and some of the other pieces, uh, the big kid Walker, it was a transfer from
Hmm.
Tennessee.
Yep.
He's 22 years old. So there's a lot of older guys that are, making, that make college basketball, really good right now. But the original question was the high school kids. Yes, it affects the high school kids, but, at the end of the day, if high school kids can still figure out and find a way to, be able to get to the college basketball scene and the level is really going to be circumstantial, depending on what your skill set is and depending on who, values you. So that's kind of where it is today.
Facts.
So, with respect to a kid's skill set, is it better to try to learn how to be more of a like a well-rounded, player, or should you try to be a specialist at something?
Okay, that's a good question. I would say, Coach, honestly, there are some like, could we use a specialist at, you know, Florida this year? Maybe. Well, maybe we already have that in Clavsar, you know.
Mm.
It really all depends on the roster and the team. My advice would almost be to like, as you're training these kids and working with these kids, try to make them multi-positional.
Mhm.
And not just multi-positional offensively, which obviously that helps to be able to play two positions or three positions offensively. But make them multi-positional defensively where they can guard different spots. So that because a lot of people are switching nowadays defensively, right?
Mhm.
So if you can get to a point where you have guys that can adhere to a defensive scheme and be really good in a defensive scheme and be switchable and like you will watch us, how good is our front line at just being able to you know
Chingaloo.
yeah if we
They
need to
hang
like
out on the perimeter.
yeah if we need to switch five guys we can and yeah of course Chinulu is the headliner but Conan can do it and how can
Yeah,
yeah
yeah,
like the entire
yeah.
front line they can do it so that's I would say coach that's kind of the secret sauce to it is can you become defensively versatile
Mm.
that's almost in itself as a specialist nowadays.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
you already taking these notes.
Okay. All right. So, you've been a long time and highly respected coach. Do you still see yourself someday becoming a head coach?
Yeah, yeah. Um, I also think that got to be kind of smart about it nowadays. Just where NIL and the portal are, to be quite honest with you, can't take any job because you're going to need resources.
That's true.
Like it's going to cost to be able to be in the ballpark of getting the kind of roster that you want. So I'm going to stick it out here at Florida until I find something that makes sense for me and my family and a job that has those resources so that I can have a chance of being able to have success right away. Otherwise, I just stick it out here in Florida and, we just keep on doing what we do.
Let me see.
Yeah, winning ain't bad.
Was that coach?
Yeah, winning ain't bad, huh?
No, no. I'm not gonna sit here and lie. I'm blessed, brother. Like shoot, like that's not the worst thing in the world. What be here in Florida,
Yeah,
all the
that's right.
Right.
Gotcha, gotcha. All right, coach. In today's fast-paced, highlight-driven game, how important are fundamentals in college basketball right now?
Yeah, I think they're still important. And when you talk about fundamentals, you mean like dribble, drive, passing, shooting, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. I think that's really important, but I think the other thing that's important too is like you got to have a bag of some sort, right?
Yes.
That's true.
Yeah, like you can sit here and you can say like, hey, I can dribble the air out the ball and I got tight hands, and I can shoot, but like, can you shoot and dribble at the same time and get your guy off of you when it's time to go one on one?
Hmm.
Like real, I mean, that's real, right?
No,
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
Right.
Like,
can't do that.
who's good enough to be able to like, create a shot for themselves, when you need a bucket? Because like we were great last year because Walter Clayton can get a shot anytime he wanted.
Mm.
Right.
Mhm.
All right. And when Walt was able to, be in his bag and doing his thing, it allowed Will Richard to have more catch and shoot opportunities because Walt's drawing a second defender.
Mm.
Correct.
Yeah.
Elijah Martin to get downhill on a straight line drive because you got the threat of Walt. Now you got the threat of all these guys that can do certain things, and now you can just throw it up to Condon or Chinulu, or you can pick and pop with Hauk. And yeah, the fundamentals, you got to have all the fundamentals for sure. Absolutely. But within that, got to have a bag of some sort.
Well, we talk a lot about the fundamentals and stuff like that, but what about IQ? I mean, because I see a lot of talented kids that's even though they can really play the game, but then in tight situations, they're not making the right play because of basketball IQ.
That's
What
the,
do you
that's
think
the
about
thing.
that?
That's what brings everything together, right?
Right.
Like seriously, seriously, that's what brings everything together. The fundamentals, the bag, all that stuff that you got to have, to be able to, have successful offensive or whatever defensive, possessions, adhering to a scout. Like I keep saying the same thing, adhering to a scout. Like, we have to have guys that, you know, understand that, okay, LeBaron Philon, Coach Cam, to your point, he's got a
Right.
great bag, but he still has a tendency that we try to take away, and guys have to understand that. And not just the guards that have to guard Philon or guard, some of these other great players, Darius Acuff, but you as a front court guy, because we switch so much, you you have to know what the front court likes to do and the guy that you're guarding. But when you switch, you got to know what Philon is trying to get to.
Mhm.
Right.
So, Ron, to your point about, the brain, it's a lot of stuff that's going on. Like, well, we all in this, podcast, understand basketball, so I understand that. But there's a lot of people, obviously, when you just watch, it's not like we're just like saying, "All right, guys, just go out there and then do your best." Like, no, we're like putting a scheme together to be able to stop the people that we're going to play against.
Mhm.
Better have
Right.
a brain to be able to like think. And you gotta not only you gotta think quick. Cause I was about to curse, but stuff happens, stuff happens quickly.
Mhm.
Right.
It happens like so fast, that now all of a sudden, now, like Zay last night, he got switched off of one of the bigs. And, he was fronting in the post and he was doing a really good job. And then we didn't do a great job of like once the ball like got back to the other side of the floor, we could have switched out with Zay and let him get back on his guy, and Connell could have came back and got on the big. And we didn't do it quickly enough, and then South Carolina scores. And that's something that we have worked on all week. We call it scram switching, like in the middle of a play.
Right.
Um, so that's just one instance of like, not executing, but more often than not, the reason why we're having great success this year is because of how good we are defensively, and we are doing those things, really, really well. So yeah, the brain, the thinking, understanding
Oh
like when
yeah.
you second defender coming at you, getting off that ball quickly, offensively or defensively, understanding the scout, like all that matters. You got to have smart guys.
Yes, sir.
All right. So next question I got here is this is for like for aspiring D1 athletes, youth. What honest advice would you give to a younger player who dreams of even playing at a Division 1 level?
Run your own race. Don't worry about what other people are doing.
Okay.
Mm, that's
And
tough.
Yeah,
well, I
that's
mean,
it.
how easy is it for, in this world of social media just to look on your phone and see like, hey, I mean, my peer is, doing XYZ, or he's going to this place, and like you can't worry about what somebody else is doing. You got to do your own thing.
Mm,
If you're worried about other people, you're not going to be able to get the blessings from what you should be learning in that regard.
Facts. Facts. Facts.
All right, coach. So, what would you say to parents who trying to guide their child through the recruiting process?
That's a loaded question there, brother.
Bang bang. That's be one.
What would I say to parents? Um, Probably the same thing, like you got to let your kid kind of run their own race a little bit. Well, here's what I would say. I would say educate yourself. Educate yourself on, the landscape of college athletics right now. Um, it's tough. It is. Ryan asked me about the high school kids earlier. I mean, it's tough on high school kids right now. Because, not not everybody wants to hear like either your son isn't ready to compete at a certain level, or your son isn't he won't make an impact, right now here. You might have to go D2, you might have to take a prep year, but I would also just educate yourself on like what the landscape is for your kid, and don't be offended when, the adult tells you, you know, eh, this is not, this might not be the right time or right opportunity.
Uh,
Uh, because I think a lot of times that's what kind of happens a little bit is, well, not my son, my son is this good. And my son played against A, B, and C player, and they're killing it right now in North Carolina, or killing it right now at Arizona, or killing it right now. Yeah, but, that might not be what the role is for your kid.
uh,
Right.
You
Well,
know, and that's a hard thing for people to hear.
it is. It is. Well, I guess a little more on that, from a coach's view, right?
Mhm.
When you guys are actually recruiting for the team, you know, and if you don't feel comfortable answering this question, you don't have to, coach. But what do you guys be looking for when you guys, okay, we got X and Y seniors that are leaving, X, Y, Z, yada, yada, yada. Like, what are you guys looking for? So that way, and put it in perspective to where, like, guys like me who try to inspire kids and parents on learning what to do, like, what exactly are you guys looking for in certain players? Like, say for you, for instance, what do you be looking for in that kid, in those type of players when it's time for you guys to recruit?
You talking about like when it like you forget about like the talent and skill, or you talking about the person? Like what do
Well,
we
let's put the whole bag in there, coach.
everything? All right, so I guess the what we look for is, what fits in the roster, depending on what their roster looks like,
Right,
right? Okay, so that's number one. You'll find a skill, or you'll find players that, maybe we need a little bit more front court depth or help. Um, maybe we need Ken mentioned it earlier, maybe we need a specialist or a shooter or something like that. So once we get past all that stuff, the next thing is, and the most important thing is, what is the character of the kid,
right,
right? You, I think why we've done really well is we've been able to find people that are good people, that are willing to be coached, have great attitudes, great work ethic, and then at the end of the day, guys that really want to be at Florida and can see themselves and visualize themselves as Gators. And that's important to them.
right.
Sounds a little cliche-ish, but it's something that we as a staff, truly believe in. Do you have a great attitude? And if you have if someone asks, well, what is a great attitude? Then you probably ain't got a great attitude. Uh,
Right.
Are you a self-starter? Are you willing to, put yourself out there and work for it without me having to tell you to get in the gym? Because we don't try to spend a half hour of skill development during practice. We want those guys to get in the gym on their own, you know. And do you really want to be in this program? Do you really want to be a part of the process? So I'm saying all that to say it's important that character matters. We're not going to like compromise on that. So
Right.
on a personal note, in front of everybody here, if we're recruiting Isaiah and AJ, Ron, I'm telling you right now, if you were freaking crazy, we those kids wouldn't be on our roster.
It's funny because that was my next
If
question. That
Dorada
was going
was
to be my
crazy,
next question.
yeah, if you and Dorada were crazy, ain't no way your kids would be on the roster because we're not dealing with that.
Right. And,
So
I,
we're
and and
still,
I'm glad you said that, coach, because that is one of the things that I
if Ronald
preach.
Jr. was crazy, we would still. No, I'm just kidding.
No, no, but seriously though, I preach that because I go to a lot of travel games and I go to high school games
Yeah,
and I see parents just going bananas.
right.
And I'm
chilling
saying to
out.
myself, I could be a scout for a school, you know what I mean? And I'm seeing you going crazy, but yet your kid is the best thing out there, but I don't want to deal with you.
I
So I'm
don't,
glad you're saying that because,
I don't want to
now you're giving me a little bit of, you
deal.
know, guys, it's true.
Yeah, yeah. I
It's
mean,
true.
who on this call wants to be around, you know, just
Right. That guy.
Yeah. And here's the other thing too. What's really good about that, like you saying that, is when we're, like say this summer, if you're around a parent and we may be interested in them, but then they act a certain way and they don't know that you know me, and
Right.
you might just say, "Hey man, I heard that y'all might be interested in such and such. You know what? That dad, that mom's like, you might want to
Yeah.
really think hard." So people got to understand, like, we're not just recruiting talent. We're not just recruiting a great basketball player. We're recruiting the whole package. We recruit the player.
Correct.
We watch the parents, and we kind of recruit the parents too.
Yep.
Not kind of, we do.
You do. Yeah. So, hey, Coach Kelly, how you doing there? You came on toward the middle to the end, but like, you have any questions for Coach Hartman there?
No, not really. I just what we've been talking, you know, uh, how players react in certain situations and who you guys are recruiting. I I jumped on late, so what? Tell me. Let's get. Tell me what you guys championship wise. What do you guys see? What do you guys see right now for championship? Championship or bust? What are we talking about?
Talking about on our current team right now.
Yes, the
Uh,
championship.
uh,
All
uh,
right, so this is not going to be like a no comment type of answer, but I'm going to give it to you straight. We see one game. We see Ole Miss on Saturday.
that's
Oh
right.
man,
Amen.
Seriously, I'm not even kidding you. Like, we can't look past. Okay, we see like a path. Like right now, I keep looking up at the screen because Arkansas is playing Alabama right now, and if Alabama beats Arkansas, that means that we're going to be 2 games ahead in the SEC race. You know, so the goal, coach, is a SEC regular season championship. We can get there. Um, but the only way to do it is kind of take an approach that we took last year when we got into the NCAA tournament. It's just, one game at a time. It was let's beat Norfolk State first before you get to UConn or Oklahoma. Well, it ended up being UConn. So now we got a monster on our hands because they had won 13 straight NCAA games. So, okay, you get past that one barely, and now you can breathe a little bit knowing that, okay, we are now on the cusp of, Sweet 16. Get past Maryland, that was the next one. And then now it's like you got Arkansas or Texas Tech. And either game is going to be a battle because one of them is in your league, or the other one is high powered, high octane offense that you got to deal with. So, we had a lot of games, throughout the course of that tournament that we could have been out.
Yeah, all the way down to the last one, Coach.
We got all the way to the last one. Yeah, down 8 to UConn the second round, down 9 with 3 minutes to go against Texas Tech, down 12 at halftime to Auburn, and then down 12 against Houston in the championship game. But it's a long-winded answer of just saying, like, literally, it's not really championship or bust. We have to go with the SEC regular season title first. So I'll admit that. And then from that point, we'll see what the next goal is.
Okay.
Is that fair, Coach?
sounds good. Sounds good.
All right.
In terms of players, so now we got college players. We talked about high school players. We got college players. Talk to us about why you think so many college players that get highly drafted, like Clayton, for example, wind up to us, they look ready, but they wind up in the G League being two ways or even going overseas. So, like, talk to us about that aspect of the game of that kid coming out of school, and now that kid is a professional, quote unquote. But now they teeter in between the G League, overseas, and the NBA.
Yeah, everyone's situation is different, right? Like, Walt was the 18th pick for Utah. had some good moments, uh, but not really understanding what their organizational structure was or is. They felt like they needed to move off of Walt, but they also used Walt as a chess piece to be able to get a really good return in Jaren Jackson Jr.
That's
But
true.
even before that, he was kind of going, to your point, back and forth between the G League to get those reps and playing with the NBA team with the Jazz. But now he's now in Memphis, and I think Memphis is going to probably keep him up there and play him. But I think the best example of what you're talking about is Walt being the 18th pick in the draft. He's like a surefire guy, right? But Will Witcher was the 56th pick in the draft, and he was on no one's draft boards until he had an outstanding senior year with us at Florida, and then he had an outstanding um, uh,
Tony.
yeah, outstanding tournament. Yep. And then he went on to the NBA pre-draft stuff, and he did great in those workouts. He interviewed well, and like I love Walt, of course, love Will, but Will is the guy. He's playing like 18 minutes a night for the Warriors.
Yeah.
So
Right.
his circumstance was a lot different than Walt's circumstance. Uh, and that's kind of a little bit of a hard question to ask because I don't really know what everyone's role is and so forth, like when they get drafted and where they're slotted and what the plan is. And obviously, like teams in the NBA, they tank, depending on where you get drafted. So there may be a reason why guys are going overseas or they're not playing a certain guy, or maybe they're trying to showcase guys, before the trade deadline, to give them more opportunity to increase their value and so forth. So some guys are ready, for the opportunity. Some guys need a little bit of maturity. Some guys need to go down and get the reps. And then other guys, are just uh, steals in the draft, like what Will has been.
Right.
That's a good situation for him. Going to the veterans, that veteran presence is
Right.
always good.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, that's an excellent point because you're going to have some organizations like the Warriors that have those vets, that can take Will under his wing, like Steph Curry and Draymond and, Jimmy. And then you got a situation where Walt was in Utah where he didn't have that.
That's true. He's
He,
young.
he really didn't have any vets. All those guys were young.
Yep.
And that was, something that, maybe Walt needed a little bit more of.
Right. I agree.
Yeah. Every situation is different.
Every situation.
That's true. Yeah.
Every situation.
Wow, because you got the person who's looking out for their best interest, so they're trying to do what they think is the best move.
Yeah,
Then
yeah.
you got the team trying to do the same thing, and
That's right. That's right.
and then you got the agent or the representative doing what they
Oh,
do. So
and then the NBA is cutthroat too. Like, don't get it twisted. Like, well, shoot, yeah. Walt bought a house, nice house in Salt Lake City. Now you got to sell it.
Wow.
Yeah.
You think the NBA, Danny Ainge, and those people with the Jazz, they don't care that Walt got a house.
Sure enough, it's a business.
They care less. They care
It's a
less.
business.
They care less.
I don't know why they don't let these do. Why don't they tell these dudes to rent apartments?
That would probably be a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad that was brought up.
Like really, Cooper Flagg and Dylan Harper are probably those guys that could probably buy a house.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else is, that's going to be something they got to kind of figure out on their own.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I'm gonna close out with one of the last questions here. So when it's all said and done, what do you hope your players remember the most about being coached by Coach Carlin Hartman?
I would say that I gave it my all, and that I cared about them as people before I cared about them as players.
Mhm.
But we were all able to kind of do it together. It's not about me. As I've learned throughout my years, somebody had to pay it forward for me, so I'm trying to do the same thing for them.
Okay.
So I want them to remember me as a certain piece to their journey.
Okay.
That's all. And the other thing I want is, like, when they do make it, I want them to take me to lunch or dinner. That's it. That's all I ask. That's all I ask. I just want a nice dinner.
Well, I know he said this was the last question, but How does it feel to be a Hall of Famer for Tulane?
Ah,
A lot of
yeah,
people don't know about that.
yeah. Great. Yeah. Like my decision was validated when I
Was
was coming out.
validated.
Yeah. Validated for myself, validated for the people around me that, and I remember when I got inducted, it was pretty cool. My high school coach, my AU coach, um, just so many people that, were in my life were able to come down. And so seeing the 50 or so people that were there from family to friends to mentors, yeah, uh, incredible, incredible. So yeah,
Well,
awesome.
congratulations, Coach.
Thank you.
Definitely. Definitely. Oh
Appreciate you.
yeah. So we definitely enjoyed you coming on to the show, giving us your time. I know there was an important game on today, so we definitely appreciate you taking a
Oh, y'all
moment
don't
to
mind me
to
looking
be
up
with
here every
us.
so often. Right now, Alabama's
That's
got a 3-point lead, so yeah.
That's right.
Look, we didn't even notice.
okay.
No, I appreciate y'all. This was fun. This was fun.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And definitely we have to have you on again, sir.
Yeah. You were around. You know how I feel about you. You know you're a good man, and I really appreciate everything that you've done. For us and our program and friendship, and so whatever I can do
Yes,
to
sir.
help you forward, man, just let me know.
Likewise, Coach. Definitely
Yes,
appreciate
sir.
you. All right.
Y'all have a great night. Great meeting everybody. I'm about to have dinner.
Enjoy that
Okay.
All
dinner.
right. You enjoy
All right,
yourself,
you have a
Coach.
great rest of your day.
All
All
right,
right.
fellas. You have a good one.
Try to stand my ground, but I knew it be. Storms came heavy, didn't steal my peace. Whispers in the dark said I'd lose my way, but I woke up stronger every single day. Get threw doubt like arrows in the wind, but I built my walls from within. Every scar turned listening to armor. Pressure only made my spirit harder. I bend, I don't break. I rise for my own sake. Was meant for harm, won't take my place. No weapon formed against me shall prosper. No shadow standing in my life ain't counting. I'm covered, I'm chosen, I'm stronger than I was. Every setback built me up. No weapon formed against me shall prosper. I stand trial, I move with honor. They can try, but I won't fall. I'm protected through it all. I walk through fire, then it smell like smoke. Every chain they tried just broke. Feet knocking out, but I stay calm. Faith in my chest like a beating drum. They thought the pressure wouldn't make me fold, but diamonds shine when the heat is bold. I learned my power, reclaim my name. Now nothing moves me the same. I bang, I don't break. I rise for my own sake. Was meant for harm, won't take my place. Prosper. No shadow standing in my light can conquer. I'm covered, I'm chosen, I'm stronger than I was. Every setback built me up. Peace in my spirit, strength in my bones. I know who I am. I stand in my throne. Protected, directed, aligned in my flow.